Hey everyone, welcome to the Gig Money Podcast. This is the inaugural episode number 1. We are going to introduce you to ourselves. I am Cody.
And I'm Andrew.
And we talk to musicians about the side hustles that they use to finance their musical ambitions. So, in this episode number 1, we're going to talk about our side hustles and the things that we have done to finance our musical ambitions. So, first and foremost,
which have been many and vast.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, I would like to say that Andrew and I, we've known each other for many years. We've been in a couple bands together in the past, and most recently, we founded a band called Machine Gun Rerun, which Andrew is still fronting and still pushing. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about MGR?
So Machine Gun Rerun, we started in 2014. As I say, Cody was actually the one that kind of coaxed me into keeping going. We were in another band prior to that, Hour of Vindication or Our Dying Day. They were both kind of one thing and another thing. But that band kind of came down in a great piece of chaos. And after that, I was like, I'm just going to be done. I don't think that there's any more else for me to do. And I had kind of given up on some of my ambitions. Felt like, maybe I wasn't good enough and all these kind of things. And then Cody just kept coming over every Tuesday. And I think we used to watch Jeopardy or Family Feud or something like that for the first little while. Then Cody's like, hey, let me bring a guitar and, I'll give you guitar lessons. And I'm like, cool. So we start playing guitar for a little bit. And pretty soon it's like, okay. So Cody says, why don't you just start singing? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I could do that, So after doing that, it's like, all right, fine, let's find a drummer, So therein Machine Gun Rerun was born. And, we ran that for a couple years. And then Cody decided that he needed to branch out and do some touring. And I'm a little kind of not into that whole thing. So yeah, from there, Cody joined a few other bands, and I've just kept Machine Gun Rerun going. So why don't we talk about your bands that you were doing at that point in time?
Yes. Well, as you said, we both started off in Our Dying Day, which turned into Our Vindication. And that was my first gigging band. I'd been with a couple of different projects before that, but never played any live shows. So
yeah, I didn't ever know
my first show was actually that show that we played in that backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was my first gig experience, and then from there I joined a band called Parish Lane. Did that for several years. Did several tours with Parish Lane. Awesome guys. And then I was also part of a band called Rickshaw, also known as Jesus Rides a Rickshaw, which is cool because it takes the whole disparity between the East and West. The Jesus being the Western kind of thing and the rickshaw being the Eastern kind, having that contrast there. But they played what they call throg. So thrash, prog, metal. It was awesome.
I didn't know that.
Had a lot of good times with those guys. And eventually an opportunity came up where there was a touring position for a guitar player in a band called Sleep Signals. And I auditioned, and they asked me if I wanted to go on tour. We did several tours together over the span of maybe 3 years. Really, really cool opportunities there. We toured with like Atreyu and Ice Nine Kills and Memphis Mayfire and Nonpoint and Hell Yeah. And it was a wild, wild time. But then when the pandemic hit, we weren't able to tour anymore. And so I decided that I was going to kind of work on my personal project of different music that I've been working on for a long time that needed to get out into the world, as I felt. So I called that project Gray March. and that's
Great,
actually
great
named
band.
after. Thank you. And that's actually named after an event that happens in one of my favorite video games of all time, which is the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Um, so it's based on that game.
Yeah.
And I was just so inspired by it. But I got several songs out, and it's my current main project. I do everything. I record, I produce, I mix, I master, and yeah, it's been great. So that's kind of my
Jack of many trades.
yes, but a master of none. That's the saying, right? I just
Right,
make it
right.
look I just make it look good enough. It's passable. It's all right.
You know what? I don't think I've ever told the story about how Machine Gun Rerun got named. And I remember I had a dream. And in that dream, that name kept coming up in my mind. So I guess my mind is my dream. So, we were kind of trying to decide on what we'd be called. And then I just says, well, what about this? And, at the time we had a drummer named David, and Cody and David both liked it. So I was like, okay, yeah, we'll go with it. And it seems like it's one of those catchy things, kind of just rolls off your tongue pretty easily. And I think it's
Yeah,
fun
it's
to
got a
say.
good feel to it.
Yeah. So back in our dying day, our vindication, back when young Cody was Cody that wasn't 21 and had a hard time getting into bars.
Which
Um,
is another story for another day.
it's another story for another day. Yes. Um, what were you doing to fund your musical endeavors? Like get your first guitar and that kind of stuff.
Well, at the time, I was actually a delivery driver for Jimmy John's. So I
Nice.
was slinging sandwiches in order to play the gig. That was my side hustle. And
Freaky fast,
freaky fast, freaky good, freaky gig money.
fresh.
Yeah, all of the stuff. So yeah, that was an interesting time. Just trying to get by, trying to make some extra money so that we could afford to go play gigs that didn't pay any money.
Right, right. The dream, right?
Living the dream. And that wasn't the dream at the time. The dream is always to actually be a rock star, right? That's what
Right,
that's what you
right.
want. You want to get up in
Yes.
front of huge crowds of people and just play
Giant
your heart
crowds.
out and connect with people. And I've always thought of
That's
you, Andrew, as a rock star.
well, thank you. You are the rock star though. I mean, you do the tours, you do the going out, you've got the skills, you've got all of those things to do so. I'm just, a cool guy, I guess.
Yeah, no, see, that's the difference. I'm the touring guitar player, and you're the rock star.
Oh, okay, okay. So
Yeah,
I remember, growing up is always what I wanted to do was be a rock star. And I remember the very first rock star I ever saw was Bon Jovi. And I know maybe that's not a rock star to some people, but I
and they're wrong.
loved, Bon Jovi. And I was like, huh. And the whole appeal to, being a rock star and seeing the whole MTV life and that I didn't really get to see that often. We didn't have cable growing up. So when we did see things, they were rather overblown and super fancy and awesome and rock stars with their cool cars and the hot girls and all that fun stuff. And I'm just like, I want that. I want that to be my life. And I remember when I was 4 years old, my parents got me a guitar for Christmas, and it was like one of the most rinky dink things you could ever get. It was plastic, literal plastic. Some of the strings on it were actually even plastic. It wasn't even a classical guitar, which requires the plastic strings. I don't even think you could have replaced the strings on it at all. But I got a picture of me with it at that age, and I was so excited. And I used to mess around and play with that thing for as long as I could. And then about 4 days after I got it, my little brother got tired of me playing with it and he threw it on the ground and stomped on it and broke it. So a lot of my musical ambitions kind of died that day.
Yeah, that's
Then
not
the
punk rock,
following
bro.
year, I know. Well, yeah.
How
I mean,
rude.
I wasn't into the punk rock thing then, it would have been real punk rock.
But he
smashing a
was,
guitar.
and
Yeah,
you don't smash somebody else's guitar, you smash your own guitar and
right,
stick it to the
right. Yeah,
man.
yeah. The following year, that brother ended up getting a guitar for Christmas, and it was a classical guitar. It was like a Yamaha. It was nice. And I was all, what the hell? Like I was the one that wanted to be the rock star. He really didn't have any musical ambition. So I actually still have that guitar. It's hanging in my band room. Um, it's kind of a cool, you know, keepsake, I guess you could say. Had it for a very long time. Yeah, very cool. Anyway, yeah, that was always my musical ambition. Um, Growing up, be a rock star. I was in a lot of different bands, in my teens. Um, One of my very first bands, we did a lot of really cool stuff. Played some interesting shows.
You played at a McDonald's play place
That was
in
the
that band,
coolest, I
correct?
think. Yes, yes. And it was for
See,
the
that
entire
is punk rock.
McDonald's. Yeah, now that was really, really cool. So we played there for all of the employees, right? It was an employee kind of like a get together. And the employees could bring their girlfriends or whatnot. So there was quite a crowd there in the Playland, and the acoustics in there are definitely not ideal for playing in a band, but it was cool. It was one of the very, very coolest things that I'd ever done. The next one that comes kind of close to it was the exact same band. We played in a high school talent show for the high school that was like my high school's rival. So we went over there and we played a show, and it was, the whole atrium, whatever auditorium, whatever, was completely packed. So that was where I got the whole next buzz where it was like, I got to be a rock star. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to be. Um,
Yeah, you got such a like positive reaction from that crowd there that it really like boosted you up.
oh, absolutely.
Like a packed
Yeah.
crowd and everybody was cheering you on.
hmm There, there is nothing else out there better than that energy, in my opinion. Um, there's no amount of caffeine or drugs or anything else that I think even compares to that reaction from a crowd. It brings something out inside of me, at least, that is just like, oh hell yeah, um, these people like me. Do you have that same feeling when you're playing for a crowd? Because I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's something about the connection that you have with people, and it could be 10 people in the crowd, it could be 1,000 people in the crowd. But if they're digging it and they are connecting with your performance and your music, there is nothing like that in the world. And that's why we do what we do. We write music, we play music because it is an extension of ourselves, our emotions, and to have people really connect with that is just amazing. And
Absolutely.
there's absolutely nothing compares to it.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't think I've ever really asked anybody else that question, so that's a first. But yeah, it's awesome when that actually happens. And I remember the first time we played in Machine Gun Rerun in Diamonds, Jerome, Idaho. Yeah, the closest thing I ever got to a tour. um, we were playing with this other, band that had been on America's Got Talent. We were playing with this band, and I was a little upset because I really wanted to leave an impression on these people because they were getting some good national attention. And I was like, hey, maybe if they like my band, then maybe they can, you know, everything's about networking. The more people you know, the better people you know at different levels can definitely propel your musical journey. And I remember we're playing the very last song and I see them walk in the door and they're dancing and being funny and goofy and I was just like, man, it kind of was a bummer for me because I really wanted to know what they thought. And so we were unloading, we're taking things off, and um, I remember I was going home for the night, and I think you stayed, right? You stayed the night in Jerome, you and David. Um, so I'm carrying out my gear, and I run into one of those guys from that band. First of all, it surprised me because I'd never seen someone that big before. because dude's like 6'5". I was like, dang, look at you. Like, wow. And I'd kind of started talking to him about just random stuff. And he's like, well, you guys did a really good job. And I'm like, well, you weren't even there. Like, how would you even know? And he's all, there's something I know about this crowd. And he says, last time we played here, there was another opener. And he says, when we walked in, kind of the exact same way that we walked in with you guys, the crowd was showing us that they hated it. They did not like that band. But when we walked in and you guys were performing and they were digging it, it's like, we don't have to sit and watch you play to know that you're a good band. It's like, that pretty much just proved it right there. And I was all, "Aw, okay, very nice, thank you." So that was a really good feeling. That made me think that Machine Gun Rerun did have the potential. So that might be my craziest gig story.
Your craziest gig story, talking to the gargantuan guitar player for the other band that was
The
on
other,
America's Got Talent. Yeah,
yeah,
those guys were awesome. But I would recommend, if you are headlining a show, show up and watch all of the bands.
absolutely.
Just respect them. It goes a really really long way. Don't just show up at the last song when you're like 10 minutes from loading on stage after everything happens. Just it is all about networking, and that,
Hmm.
even though he had positive things to say based on what the crowd reaction was that they encountered, I would encourage just support everybody, because as musicians, we're all in it together. We all do it for similar reasons, and you got to treat the other musicians not as lesser people than yourselves
Right.
if you're a headliner,
Right.
or even if you're not a headliner. Treat
When it comes
the
to,
other musicians as your colleagues rather
hmm,
than your subordinates.
right, and just to kind of expand on that a little bit is, I remember kind of when we were just starting out with the band we were in, it seemed like there was a lot of competition, and I was just like, shouldn't be any competition. Like, we're all just in this together. It's like, oh, well, we're going to sit back and silently judge you because you're not our specific, um, band type or our specific genre. And it's like, well, you can still not be a fan of the genre, but understand that, those musicians are good musicians, and they can have your support from that. I don't think there's ever been a band that I have played for that was on a national type of a scene that did not show up 10 minutes before their show was to start. And that I've never seen any big band like that ever kind of watch. So it was one of those things where I always kind of felt a little gypped out of,
Mhm.
it's just like, you want to know what they think about you because they've made it, and you want to make it too.
Yeah, that's definitely something to take into consideration with everything. My personal experience, being on tour several different times with, a variety of different really amazing musical, very talented bands. The ones that really leave an impression are the ones that show everybody respect, treat everybody with respect. And it's very important because, in this music industry, you have to band together to make it happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little discouraging at times when people have their egos, and it's just it comes down to people being unique, and certain people will have different mindsets about something, and certain people will have egos whether they're justified or not.
I've
And
met quite a few different stars, I should say. One of the coolest people that I ever met was Chameleonaire, and I was working security for venues, and it was the Cinco de Mayo show, and there was all these different bands that were playing that night, and literally it was just basically a bunch of rappers, right? So these people would walk in, and I'd be working backstage, and they walk past me with their gold microphone in their hand, or something flashy, and basically stick their nose up to me and everything. And Chameleonaire got done with his set, and he came over to me. He's like, "Hey man, I just want you to know I really appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you're keeping us safe, and I feel very safe that you're here." And he's like, "You're doing a really good job." And I was just like, wow, like, for somebody to take just that much time out of their day to kind of give somebody a compliment just really made me go, all right, I'm a fan. I didn't really know many of his songs before, but now I like him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to be a fan of any musician that treats people as people,
Hmm.
and just is humble. And I don't know of a lot of people who will continue listening to a band after they've met any member of the band and gotten uh, a bad feeling, or treated like lesser or anything like that. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, because at the end of
There's
the
been a
day,
few
we're
of
all
those.
just people, right?
Yep.
You might be successful, but that doesn't mean that other people need to be treated that way, especially your fans, especially people that, connect with your music and buy your merch. Like, those are the people that you want to thank. You
Yeah,
want to
absolutely.
you want to say, "Hey, thank you so much, because what you're doing is helping me continue do what I love."
Right.
So, you have to stay humble at all
Hmm.
stages, and the people that do really shine through.
Hmm. And they
So,
become, people that you remember, being the people in the crowd and stuff like that. Like if you walk over to somebody and they don't really know you, but you just went on stage and you performed or something to that effect, and you go over to them and you start talking to them, you're pretty well going to get that person as a fan, because now you've made a personal connection with them. And whether they like your band before or not, now they like you. So that was something that I have done on a few different occasions just to get, one, I like somewhat to meet people, and
mhm.
another, it's cool, it's one of those cool
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
So,
it's just it's definitely fulfilling to go out into the crowd after you've played a show and talk to people, and just relate to whoever is enjoying what's going on, and connect. And if you rob yourself of that by being too much of an egomaniac, then you're really missing out on a lot. Because the way that I met my wife was this: I was with the Sleep Signals on tour, and we were playing in Dallas on a tour with All That Remains headlining, and Attila and Escape the Fate were also playing. And so we were the first of four, and we played. This was several weeks into the tour at the point, so we kind of really come together on everything, our stage presence, and really putting on the best show that we could. But every single night after we were done playing, we would go out into the crowd and socialize with people, talk with people, get people interested in our music if they were just there kind of passively listening, but then meeting somebody from the actual band that like went so far. But I remember that this was a very, very crazy night, and so many different things happened. But there was someone in the crowd who was going through some difficult stuff at the time, and she really connected with the music and the performance that we put on. So she went to the merch table after the show, and she purchased some different merch, including a poster, and she was told that the rest of the guys in the band are out wandering in the crowd, and they will be excited to sign this for you. Like, they will be so happy that you bring this up and say, "Hey, can I have your signature?" And that got a response from tons and tons of different people, because they were out looking for us. Well, we were just talking with people and hanging out, and just being part of the scene. So she had had a few margaritas at this point and got really into it and was having a great time. and she had gotten all of her signatures except for mine. And she came up to me holding this poster in her hand, and through some Freudian slip, instead of saying, "Can I have your autograph?" she came up to me and she looked at me and she said, "Can I have you?" And I was a little surprised. And so I took a step back and I looked her up and down, like, "Can she have me?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, absolutely." So that was our glimpse, as we call it. And we didn't actually talk for several months after that. But then the band came back through on another tour with Hell Yeah. And she sent me a message a few weeks in advance on Instagram saying, um, "I don't know if you want me to or not, but I'm coming to the show. And so if I come up to you during the show and ask again, can I have you? Would that be okay?" And I said, "Yeah, do it." So yeah, we got to talking at that show after we had played, and we haven't spent a single day since that day without talking to each other. And the rest is history, as we call it. We
History.
started talking, and we started dating, and it was long distance dating, and it was so much fun, and we really, really just vibed with each other, and now we're married, and we have a family, and that is the dream. I didn't realize it at the time, but I am living the dream.
Yes.
I have
So
a fantastic family, and I'm so happy to be here with them day in and day out. So that's the dream.
that's good. So you're saying that if you were to have anything other than this musical ambition, what would be the dream? That's the dream.
That's the dream. Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
It's very cool. Now
Yeah.
we were talking about it sounds like your best experience on a tour. Now tell me about a worst experience, the worst experience you've had while out on tour.
Yes, that was definitely the best experience. Cumulatively, of course, because like that was spanned several months and years, and it just developed into something awesome. And uh, as
Not many
for
people get
the
something long lasting like that out of a gig.
That's true. That's true. I consider myself very, very lucky every single day. But as for the worst tour experience that I have ever had, there have been a few really like bad things that have happened on tour that we've just had to figure it out and make it through. You blow a tire in one state and you have to have it replaced, and then you go to a different state and you blow another tire, and all of a sudden it's three different tires in 2 days that you have had to have replaced just to get to the next gig and play. And that kind of stuff happens on tour all the time. And the people who really make it in the business are the people who persevere in those situations and just crack down and figure it out and move on from there. So that's really tough to do. But in terms of absolute worst tour experiences, I can say that driving around without air conditioning is definitely among them, because you're
I've
living
heard
in a bus.
I've heard that on a few different occasions at this point. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that sounds like that would be very miserable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So driving around in a bus or a van or anything that has no AC, and it's the middle of summer and it's hot as hell and you're just uncomfortable all of the time. And then you spend 40 minutes playing in front of a crowd and it's awesome. But then you go back to sleeping in a super hot, sweaty, oh,
van with a
yeah.
bunch of other guys. Man,
Yes.
that's living the life right there though.
Yeah, that's living something. It's not a dream, but
So I kind of want to talk about one of my worst experiences doing a show. Because it just popped in my head, something that I've, you know, can maybe relate to some other people. Kind of goes along with the whole, being a decent person uh, decent musician, decent band, kind of a thing. Was playing the show, and it was kind of like my turn to book the show, and I'd never really done it before. So I got a few bands that I had heard from, or some bands that were good friends of mine, and they, went ahead and said, "Yes, we will play that show with you." And one of those bands was a pretty big local band. At least I thought they were very, very awesome, and I'd heard of them, and they had tons and tons of fans on their Facebook page, and I was just like, wow, these guys got to be professionals. Like they're really great. Um, well, the a few weeks prior, I sent out a list of times and when the bands would be playing and in what order. And then the following week, I'd got a request from one of the other bands if they could switch a slot because they wanted to have a filmographer come out and take some videos of them while they were playing. But that person couldn't get there till a specific part in the night. And I was like, okay, well, we can mix that up and I'll send out an update. So I sent out an update, and apparently, this really awesome local band here, they whoever runs their email looked at it and just thought it was some kind of you know, a reminder, but didn't realize it was an update. And so they were going on at an earlier time than this other band. So they didn't show up until like the very first band was ready to play. And it's like, okay. And the only person that showed up was the drummer. And so he's like, well, what do I need to do? Well, no, the first band had almost gotten, they were pretty much done, and we hadn't seen that band yet. So the drummer's like, so where do you want me to put this stuff? And I was like, on stage. And the guy looks at me and he's like, on stage? And I was like, yeah, you're playing next. And he's like, no, our slot's not until this time. And I was like, no, I sent out an update that this was at this time. And I kind of figured that you all would have, understood that. Um, anyway, the guitar showed up shortly after that. And the guitarist was like, this is a bunch of BS, and got in my face and was having a really big problem with it and everything. And I'm like, look, guys, I'm just trying to do my best here. I send out an update. I don't know who checks your email. Come to find out, it was that guitarist, and he just blew it off. He didn't even tell anybody about it. Well, their singer was stuck in traffic, way south from Salt Lake City where we were performing. The bass player was pretty close, but it was like, the venue had told me, okay, we're going to give him 10 minutes to be here to play. And then we're just going to start playing some house music basically until the next band's slot is ready to go. Well, obviously, some heated arguments exchanged. Um, about right before it was the very last minute for them to finish setting up, and everybody, the drummer got their stuff on there, the guitarist got his stuff on there, the bass player got his stuff on there. They were waiting for the singer. That's all they needed was the singer. And the singer walked in, got on stage, took his shoes off, and they started like right away. Now I thought that was really cool. I was like, wow, dude was just ready, and he was malleable, I guess is what I want to say, is like he could just, whatever happens happens kind of a thing, and didn't really throw a fit like all the other guys were doing. Shortly after that show, all of the stickers that we had that were like on the walls at different venues and things like that were being ripped off, and come to find out that it was from either fans of theirs or the band players themselves, that were upset with us and just ripped our stickers off the walls. And it's just like, come on, guys, that was the worst uh experience I've had doing a gig, and it created a lot of problems for a lot of years.
Yeah, like how can you roll up to a show that's already started and have very very limited information apparently on how the night is supposed to go, and just be
Hmm.
surprised like professionals know what is going on beforehand, and they have a system, and these guys clearly did not have the communication necessary to be one of those professional bands, and they pull it off. But like, why would they be mad at you? You let them know, you put it out there, and
Hmm.
they were just kind of butthurt
It kind
about
of,
it. I remember you saying that a lot of their fans showed up after they played.
yes. And
Why would their fans show up after they played, expecting that they would play later? Why wouldn't their fans show up when the show started to catch all of the bands? And it's just a sure sign of unprofessionalism. Like, if
right.
it's a local show, even, not the hugest thing in the world, you tell people to show up when the doors open, enjoy all of the bands, and stay till the end and support everybody.
What kind of purpose does it serve to go there and watch a band for 35, 40 minutes, just the band you want to see, when you could turn it into an all night experience, and
Yeah.
you see the first band and all the way to the very end and you have a good time. I guess that's kind of what I see out of it. But yeah, it really, it really pissed off that band. It pissed off their fans. And I even had to go to the venue booker and tell him what was going on because, I had to warn him and be like, hey, this is what's going on. And these guys are pissed. So, I mean, and he was like, well, did you send out an update? And I was like, of course I did. And he was like, it's their problem.
Mhm.
It's like, well, cool, but still, we're the one getting all the blowback here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was I lost a lot of respect for those people in that band on that day. I really did look up to them. I thought they were such cool guys. I mean, a lot of people in the local music scene knew who that band was.
Mhm.
So it was like, oh, they're really cool. And just to get treated like that was a really big negative situation.
Yeah, definitely a worst gig experience for the books.
Hmm. And I've played some really crap shows where there's been like, there was a show that we played one night, Machine Gun Rerun at this club called the Metro, um, where the band, so we thought that we were going to be opening for this other band that they were really cool. They were a good band. They cool guys. They they played their instruments very well. They played a lot of really fun covers. But as soon as they got done, now they told us that we were playing the last out of the show, and what most people do is when there's a headliner, they're the ones that play the very last show. Typically, that's how it goes. But this band didn't want to play that late, so they wanted to come up, and it was a weekday. I think it was like a Wednesday or something.
Yeah.
Um, and when they got done with their show, and they brought, I don't know, 50 to 100 people. There was quite a few people that showed up for them. Um, But when they were done, they were like, "Hey, let's all go outside and hang out." And it's like, "No, no, stay here and watch us." Like we're gonna play next. And I remember we ended up playing to like 4 people, and that was still a better band experience than having this other band being babies.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta weed out the unprofessional bands in the scene to kind of
Hmm.
build it up and everything, because everybody's got to work together to make it happen. It just doesn't. There's not one band that skyrockets, and why leave everybody else in the dust when you can promote your own scene, your local scene, which there are so many amazing bands and musicians out there. And your absolute favorite international huge band at one point was a local band. So why not just show up for the whole show? Why not tell everybody to show up for the whole show and catch maybe their new favorite band? Is it because you don't want your fans to find a new favorite band that's not you? I mean, don't have that kind of ego.
God, it reminds me of how I kind of discovered one of my very first favorite bands, right? And I don't want to date myself, but
I would
um,
date you though.
oh, hey, thanks. Um, one of my first concerts that I'd ever seen was Metallica. And I'm not talking about like old Metallica. I think it was in the load, reload era. And I showed up obviously early because, you want to go and have an experience. And the very first band that came out, I'd heard one of their songs on the radio, but, you know, it kind of got overplayed. And, when somebody overplays a show or a song, it can kind of leave a really bad taste in your mouth from, it's like, okay, well, I'm tired of that song kind of a thing. And I
Yeah.
was about there with this band. And I remember it, sh- the show started. And I don't know if Metallica was like, give them the most basic of basic setup because they're going to have like the coolest thing, right? Because like they had the entire floor of this arena that was just their stage and it was so cool. But then there was this kind of like a side stage where the other opening bands played because they weren't allowed on that stage, of course. So this guy walks out in a kilt playing the bagpipes. And I'm all, okay, I've heard this song. This song's been played a lot on the radio, and they come out and they play the song blind. And no, they're not blind. They play the song blind. Just wanted to make sure I emphasize that. And by the end of their show, by the end, the last song that they played, I was like, I am a fan. I am a huge fan. I love these guys. And still to this day, I still love them. But that's happened on other occasions as well. I went to go see him, HIM, um, and they had a band open up for them that was just amazing. They actually were better than him. And I was like, if I hadn't showed up earlier, I would have never seen this band and, loved them. That's all I got to say about that.
Yes. Show up for all the bands. Show up early. You might not hit on pure gold every single time, but you're going to have an experience.
You never
And
know.
yeah, that opening band could be the next big thing. And
Yep.
you just allow yourself the opportunity to experience that and you get on that before it is the headlining band and like I liked them way back in the day when they opened up for such and such and yeah, you just I don't know, you get into music because you appreciate what it is and what it does for you and
The
how it
hipster
connects
aspect.
people. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we do what we do. We do these various different side hustles so that we continue doing music and connecting with people. And I know I've had so many different side jobs, it's crazy. I
Yeah.
have delivered sandwiches in the past. I've done a lot of woodworking. I started out doing woodworking from the day I turned
Building wood
16. Yeah, yeah, you gotta sculpt that wood and work with
sometimes.
it, especially the hardwood.
Hardwood. Yes.
Yes. But I've done a lot of woodworking. That was my first job, thanks to my dad got me a job at the cabinet shop he was working at, and I've been doing woodworking since, and that's what I'm doing now. I am, building furniture out in our garage. I get to the opportunity to work from home so that I can stay close to my family, and it's amazing. But I have done a lot of things to stay on the road, stay in music. I've started doing a lot of graphic design, learning that, going to school for that, working towards a multimedia design certification in the local tech college. And I never got there because it just got to a point where I just wanted to do music more and
Hmm.
find other ways to make money. I've worked in a warehouse, piling a bunch of medical supplies on a pallet to send out to the hospitals in the area, and that was awesome. I've built trade show displays that go up in various different places when huge companies have all of their workers
I
come
remember you doing that.
together. Yeah, I hand built a custom mobile. It was a RC race car track with all kinds of different pitfalls and jumps and loops and stuff in it, and it was really cool. And it was like it had LED lighting and it had walnut paneling all the way around, so it looked really nice. And I had a scoreboard and the ability to take that apart and put it in a crate and ship it off to the next trade show was just, yeah, that was a really, really awesome experience. And I took a lot of things from that and applied it to music in terms of like building cases to house merch that had the band logo on the front that was lit with LED lights from the back, and it looked really cool. It drew people in. It's crazy the different
It's a good
things
skill to have.
that you can apply to your musical career.
Mhm.
And so at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're just going out there and trying to make some money so that we can continue playing music. I know,
Yeah, I've
Andrew,
done
you've got
everything from working McDonald's to working security for bands to working at there was a kind of like a production line where I would build um airbags, and that was an interesting side hustle. It was what you had to do, you do what you got to do to fund your musical ambitions.
yeah.
um Same thing with the working security thing. Everybody would think that'd be really cool working security for bands and stuff, but it has its downfalls as well, and that's another story for another day.
That's another story for another day. So I think at this point, everybody has a pretty good background of Andrew and myself to kind of go off of while listening to the episodes that we do from here on out. So to wrap things up, I'm going to say, Andrew, do you prefer waffles or pancakes?
Oh man, I was worried that was going to be something serious.
It is
Well,
serious, man. Take it
I know.
seriously. This is
True,
life or
true, but
death.
I
It's
was like,
waffles or
it's like
pancakes.
Andrew. And then I was like, "Oh, whoa, now it's getting serious." Yes, yes, this is a very, very good, serious situation. I'm a waffle guy, 100%. And they got those little cups in them, and you just put all the syrup in them and everything. And soggy pancakes, nah, I like the crispy waffles.
See,
So
w-
for
the,
you,
yes, I agree with the waffles, because not only are they crispier, but it is scientifically proven they are geometrically shaped to have more surface area that is crispy and perfectly cooked for you to syrup and butter up and just be completely enamored with while you're
you heard it
enjoying
there,
them. And one
science.
of my favorite dishes scientifically is chicken and waffles. So you get the nice, crispy, savory, breaded chicken, maybe a little bit of hot sauce. And then you have those nice textural waffles on the bottom with some butter and syrup. You got that sweet and salty element, and they come together, and it's a very southern dish, but it's my favorite. And
I've
my
never
wife
had that.
cooks it like nobody else. It's amazing.
I
And that's why
think
I'm
that
living the
maybe I
dream.
need to take a trip to Texas,
Yes, yes. Come down. We'll get you some chicken and waffles. We'll have a party. It'll be great.
and then I'll drive back home.
I have to mention, though, that my wife prefers the pancakes, but
Oh,
I have developed the perfect way to make her perfect pancakes, and that is by doing the silver dollar pancake size and
okay,
buttering the
yeah.
pan, and so that the pancakes have that perfect crispy edge, and they're not super
Oh, that's
huge
good.
and cakey and everything like that. They're nice, small, bite-sized pancakes, and they have the crispy edges. And I would cook those for her every single day until the day I die because they make her
Wow,
so happy. So,
that's good.
yeah, she likes the
Do you make
pancakes.
them
I
into?
like the waffles.
Do you try to make like patterns, or like the one that I always try to make is Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that's the easy one, right? And
Right. Yeah.
you got to do that for the kids. I do that for the kids.
Ah, I
Mickey
see.
Mouse pancakes,
So
or you put it in a squeeze bottle and do a little bit more intricate, maybe add some food coloring and do like your favorite pancake artist on TikTok does. But I don't do that. I just make the crispy silver dollar pancakes, make my wife happy, make some pancakes for the kids, make them happy, and then, you know, go on living the dream.
Those would probably be the best pancakes actually because of the crispy edge. That's, I was going to be like, man, Cody, I don't know, man. You're married to a pancake person? Oh, I don't know if that's going to work. But crispy pancakes,
The crispy
I
edge
approve.
silver dollar pancakes, down to a science. All right. So thank you everybody for tuning in to the inaugural episode of the Gig Money Podcast, episode 1. Yeah. We got a lot on the schedule to talk to various different musicians about their side hustles and give you a little bit of insight into the backstage area of what the musicians do to keep on funding their musical dreams. So stay tuned. We appreciate you guys listening. Until next time, I am Cody.
And I'm Andrew.
See you guys.
We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Adios.
Adios.
Vaya con Dios. It's another story for another time.